is here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Welcome, welcome. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. A lot to get to. But we never want to forget the fundamentals here. There is a lot to get to. But something interesting. I was sent a link and then read on National Review Online a piece by Jeb Bush. And I started to read it, and I said, okay, let me read this. I read the whole thing. I said, what's he up to? He's doing a lot of interviews now, making a lot of proclamations and demands, telling us what the Republican Party should be and how it should think. Now, folks, I think we've experimented with enough Bushes in the presidency. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I believe enough is enough. These are men of integrity, but for the most part, they have not carried forward the conservative agenda of Ronald Reagan and those of us who believe in a limited central government. They just haven't, and I don't think they're capable of it. We're a big country with a lot of great people who can do a lot of great work for this nation as president and in other public offices, and I don't think we need to keep relying on one family. And we ought not to. But I read this, and I'll tell you what's interesting about it. And we'll link to it. I'm going to read part of it to you. I've noticed with the Bushes, and Jeb Bush too, they lace their statements, or they lace, in Jeb's case, their writings with references to conservatism and free market principles and liberty and so forth. And yet, they always wind up in the same place. A very activist federal government. And when you have an activist federal government, as opposed to a government that is actively devolving power back to the people in the states, I don't consider that activist in that sense. What do? You grow the government. Now, Jeb Bush says, in part, I can't read the whole thing, that we should be the party of free thinking and free markets. We should be the party of policy experimentation and fresh approaches. We should be the party of competing ideas. We should allow our ideas to be tested and force our ideas to prove their value in practice. Now, I want to stop right there. If the President of the United States has great, fresh ideas, experiments, the first thing he needs to check is whether or not he has the power to institute them under the Constitution, or whether he should institute them at all. You see, the fresh ideas, the experimentation, the new approaches, well, those are supposed to belong to the individual. Government is supposed to exist to create the platform so the individual can thrive and experiment and grow and try new ideas. The Constitution and government aren't an ongoing idea machines that we have cool ideas and new ideas and we want to try it, No Child Left Behind and the drug program on Medicare and all these. That's not the way it's supposed to work. So there is a conflation here of what the role of government should be and what the role of government shouldn't be versus the right, the will of the individual. Let me read on. He says, we already have a model for this form of governance, and it can be found in the diversity of our Republican governors. Let me stop there. Republican governors have certain powers under state constitutions that are different than the powers under the federal Constitution conferred on a president. And while state constitutions may allow a governor in New Jersey or Indiana or somewhere else to experiment and so forth, which is perfectly fine. That's the whole notion of federalism and diversity among the states. It's not necessarily true at the federal government level. He goes on. From veterans like Mitch Daniels of Indiana and Bobby Jindal of Louisiana to newcomers like Chris Christie of New Jersey, we've seen a multiplicity of policy ideas and approaches. He leaves out Scott Walker, which I quickly noticed. Scott Walker, if he's not the most successful Republican governor in this country, he's certainly among the most successful, and he's certainly more successful than, among others, Chris Christie. Yet, because of that, many non-conservatives among Republicans consider him controversial. And I think it's interesting and illustrative that Jeb Bush leaves him out of the list of governors. I'm not picking on Jeb Bush, but clearly Jeb Bush wants to be president one day. And this is a viewpoint that's pushed by sort of the moderate rhino wing of the Republican Party pretending not to be moderate or rhino. So I need to take it on, and if I don't take it on, nobody's going to take it on. He says some of these folks mirror each other, some contradict each other. On taxes and spending, these governors often, but not always, agree. On immigration and social policy, they frequently disagree. We've seen a multiplicity of policy ideas and approaches. Well, that's the nature of federalism and diversity among and between states. That's a good thing. I agree. But it has nothing to do with the exercise of federal power. You have to look at the Constitution first and see what power you can exercise. Stick with me. He says the animating force of this governance is diversity and creativity of thinking, and that is how the Republican Party should always be. We are broad thinkers and confident believers in America. We're serious about finding solutions for the problems we face in our communities, and we will not limit the ideas we consider in helping America reach for greatness. This doesn't mean an abandonment of principle. Far from it. We will be guided meaningfully by the first principles of our party and this nation. And what would they be? He doesn't state them. He says, first above all is our fundamental belief in the individual as the center of opportunity and ideological energy. We do not believe that government creates prosperity or drives it. Like the founders of our country, we know a self-regulating and responsible people is essential to limit the scope and ambition of government. We resist the urge to substitute regulations and governmental directives for entrepreneurial creativity and civic service. We believe that the best government is that which is smallest, and the most just government is that which treats all citizens and entities equally with no special favors and no special sanctions. Sounds like an ideologue, I guess. We believe there's no way for leaders to direct the dreams and ambitions of 312 million Americans, and so we believe fundamentally in freedom. Let individuals direct themselves to whatever heights they aspire to reach, and let them enjoy the benefits of their success because they bear significant responsibility for the risks they take. I think we all agree with that, right? Okay, good so far. But to make sure we do not lose the advantage of that clear difference with Obama, we must not layer onto our fundamental beliefs thick black lines of ideology. Black lines that we do not allow ourselves to cross. Those black lines can be comforting, I understand. They provide certainty and stability and ideological purity. But they also restrict the way we think about problems and make more difficult the kind of reform-minded free thinking that has defined the conservative movement for the last 50 years. Well, I got to thinking about that. I've got to thinking about that. This speech by Ronald Reagan in 1977 about a new Republican Party, speech he gave at CPAC, has always been at the back of my mind. Many people have referenced this speech. You'll remember, Mr. Producer, we dug it up many years ago. A speech that was collecting dust, that nobody remembered, that was difficult to find. And we publicized it and we pushed it everywhere, and I talked about it at length. But I thought I would let Ronald Reagan answer Jeb Bush on this ideological purity question, because Jeb is confused about this. And many Republicans are confused about this. And when they assert it, they sound like the left. In 1977, Reagan said, "I've always been puzzled by the inability of some political and media types to understand exactly what is meant by adherence to political principle. All too often," he said, "in the press and the television evening news, it is treated as a call for ideological purity." That's exactly the phrase Jeb Bush used. Whatever ideology may mean, Reagan said, and it seems to mean a variety of things depending upon who's using it, it always conjures up in my mind a picture of a rigid, irrational clinging to abstract theory in the face of reality. We have to recognize that in this country, ideology is a scare word, and for good reason. Marxist-Leninism is, to give but one example, an ideology. All the facts of the real world have to be fitted to the Procrustean bed of Marx and Lenin. If the facts don't happen to fit the ideology, the facts are chopped off and discarded. Reagan said, "I consider this to be the complete opposite to principled conservatism. If there's any political viewpoint in this world which is free from slavish adherence to abstraction, it is American conservatism." You hear that, Jeb? Abstraction. Just free thinking. Free thinking is different than rational thinking. When a conservative states that the free market is the best mechanism ever devised by the mind of man to meet material needs, he's merely stating what a careful examination of the world has told him is the truth. When a conservative says that totalitarian communism is an absolute enemy of human freedom, he's not theorizing. He's reporting the ugly reality captured so unforgettably in the writings of Alexander Solzhenitsyn. When a conservative says it is bad for the government to spend more than it takes in, he's simply showing the same common sense that tells him to come in out of the rain. When a conservative quotes Jefferson that government that is closest to the people is best, it is because he knows that Jefferson risked his life, his fortune, and his sacred honor to make certain that what he and his fellow patriots learned from experience was not crushed by an ideology of empire. Conservatism, Jeb, is the antithesis, as Reagan says, of the kind of ideological fanaticism that has brought so much horror and destruction to the world. The common sense and common decency of ordinary men and women working out their own lives in their own way. This is the heart of American conservatism today. Conservative wisdom and principles are derived from willingness to learn, not just from what's going on now, but what has happened before. The principles of conservatism, it's not ideology, it's experience. The principles of conservatives are sound because they are based on what men and women have discovered through experience in not just one generation or a dozen, but in all the combined experience of mankind. And Reagan said, when we conservatives say that we know something about political affairs and that we know can be stated as principles, we are saying that the principles we hold dear are those that have been found through experience to be ultimately beneficial for individuals, for families, for communities, and for nations, found through the often bitter testing of pain, sacrifice, and sorrow. I had a discussion with my dear friend Ed Meese yesterday, who was as close to Ronald Reagan as anyone could be when he was governor and when he was president of the United States. And he said to me, people don't realize how much Reagan read about philosophy and history. He understood John Locke and Charles de Montesquieu. He understood Edmund Burke and Frederick Bastiat. He had their books on his shelves. When Jeb Bush talks about ideological purity and conservatism, yet sounds like a conservative in the paragraph before in what he writes, he does not understand conservatism. Conservatism isn't about ideological purity. It's about human experience, learning from it, building on it. It's not about politics per se. That we learn from this governor and that governor and this governor and that governor. And the government should experiment with this and tamper with this and do that. No. The government needs to back down. The government needs to shrink. The government needs to get out of the way. It's not about experimentation. It's not about free thinking, although you're free to think whatever you want. Those are silly catchphrases. More when I come back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, here is the key paragraph in Jeb Bush's post today. Listen to this. Thick black lines of ideology are good at keeping people in, but they're also good at keeping people out. And our party can't win if we keep people out. Our goal is not to assemble a small army of purists. We need a nation of converts. We've seen the other way of governing. It has had its day, it has made its best case, and it has failed. Many people are, yeah, that's right. Big tent. Here's what Reagan said in 1977, answering Jeb Bush. Let us lay to rest once and for all the myth of a small group of ideological purists trying to capture a majority. Replace it with the reality of a majority trying to assert its rights against the tyranny of powerful academics, fashionable left revolutionaries, some economic illiterates who happen to hold elective office, and the social engineers who dominate the dialogue and set the format in political and social affairs. If there's any ideological fanaticism in American political life, it is to be found among the enemies of freedom on the left or right, those who would sacrifice principle to theory, those who worship only the God of political, social, and economic abstractions, ignoring the realities of everyday life. They are not conservatives. You know what I think happened? I think Jeb Bush, or one of his guys, took the 1977 Ronald Reagan speech, an iconic speech, twisted it and played with it to accommodate Jeb Bush's rather less than conservative philosophy. The point is, Reagan says, we're not ideological purists, and we're not a small group. We're the majority. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin, a proud conservative. No ifs, ands, or buts. Call in at 877-381-3811.
The key here to understanding the difference between Reagan and a Jeb Bush or George Bush or George H.W. Bush or Colin Powell and on and on and on. That is the difference between a conservative and a or a neo-statist, if you will, is in this one idea where Reagan says, let us lay to rest once and for all the myth of a small group of ideological purists trying to capture a majority. He says, we are the majority. We're trying to fight tyranny. And Jeb Bush twists that, and he says, thick black lines of ideology are good at keeping people in, but they're also good at keeping people out, and our party can't win if we keep people out. Conservatism is not about keeping people out. Conservatism is about constitutional Republican government, small r. Conservatism is about private property rights. Conservatism is about individual sovereignty. Conservatism is about a stable rule of law. Conservatism is about holding up the civil society and holding down the central government. It's a philosophy that wants the individual to pursue their opportunities, their dreams, and to succeed, and to applaud them rather than punish them. And we don't get any of this from government, from a president, from some bureaucracy. And that's the difference. We're not a small cabal. We're the majority. Conservatism is Americanism. I don't care what the left says. Forget about them for now. Conservatism is constitutionalism. Natural law, the unalienable rights of individuals. Now, it's one thing for Jeb Bush and the rest of them to refer to these things from time to time, but they honestly look at conservatives as a small group of ideological purists, drawing thick black lines of ideology all around them. It's not what we're doing at all. I'll give you an example. Let's take immigration. We conservatives have no problem with lawful, ordered immigration, the way we want lawful, ordered anything else the government's involved in. What we don't want is wild anarchy, where anything almost goes. Whether it's on the border, whether it's at the IRS, whether it's at the Agriculture Department or the EPA or anywhere else. This isn't backward looking. This is progressive, and not in the liberal sense, but in the sense of an evolving society, a progressing society, where people grow, where freedoms grow. If you take the position that conservatives are backward looking, are a minority, are drawing these thick black lines of ideology, then you sound like a liberal. Then you can't win. You can't win. It's even worse, really. If you take the position that because somebody happens to get elected governor of New Jersey or Indiana or Louisiana or wherever it is, or Florida, that if they have a bunch of good ideas, just implement them all. Let's see what works. I mean, based on our principles, of course, then you don't get it. What you want to do is devolve as much decision-making, let me put it that way, to the individual as possible. That's what you want to do. That's not drawing thick lines of ideology around anything. That's embracing individual liberty. I don't know what that individual is going to do with their liberty. They may do something I despise. But as long as it's not illegal or immoral, they're free to do it. I can't stop them. I may not like what they do. So be it. Live and let live. The truest diversity exists in the freest of societies. Not because some president comes up with 10 great ideas or some governor comes up with 14 great ideas, and some we may agree with and some we may not. That's all government-centric. That's politics-centric. And unfortunately, that's how Jeb thinks. As did George. The great ideas about education don't come out of Washington. They come out of your towns. They come out of the private sector. They come out of religious institutions. They always have. The great ideas come from the people. We the people. And that's what conservatism is about. Here's a short clip of Ronald Reagan. His farewell address sums it up very nicely. Go ahead, Mr. Producer.
Ours was the first revolution in the history of mankind that truly reversed the course of government, and with three little words: we the people. We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route and how fast. Almost all the world's constitutions are documents in which governments tell the people what their privileges are. Our Constitution is a document in which we the people tell the government what it is allowed to do. We the people are free. This belief has been the underlying basis for everything I've tried to do these past 8 years. But back in the 1960s, when I began, it seemed to me that we'd begun reversing the order of things, that through more and more rules and regulations and confiscatory taxes, the government was taking more of our money, more of our options, and more of our freedom. I went into politics in part to put up my hand and say, stop. I was a citizen politician, and it seemed the right thing for a citizen to do. I think we have stopped a lot of what needed stopping. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited. There's a clear cause and effect here that is as neat and predictable as a law of physics. As government expands, liberty contracts.
Does that sound like an ideologue? Sounds like a statesman. Does that sound like a man placing thick black lines of ideology, which are good at keeping people in, but they're also good at keeping people out, and our party can't win if we keep people out? What is Jeb Bush talking about, keeping people out? Is he talking about we don't support open borders and amnesty? What is he talking about? Where is it that we want to keep people out? What is it that we want to keep them out of? Does the man even understand conservatism? Has he ever read John Locke or Charles de Montesquieu or Edmund Burke? If he read them, maybe he should bone up on them again. I am convinced that this post, maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I am convinced that this post at National Review Online was an attempt at a restatement of Reagan's 1977 speech about the new Republican Party, with certain changes, fundamental changes that Reagan would have rejected. But I want you folks to understand something. We are not a small cabal of ideological purists. Unless, of course, the Founding Fathers were. Unless, of course, the framers of the Constitution were. Ours is the belief system, the mindset of individual liberty. We proudly stand on the shoulders of the founders. We look at the Constitution first to determine whether the president has the power, whether he be free-thinking or not, to impose his ideas on a nation. Now, I'm not talking about tax cuts and deregulation, all that, although I could be, and if I were, the purpose of those are to free the individual and to reduce the size of the government. But I'm not talking about that in terms of specific policies. I'm talking about a mindset that exists within the Republican Party and surely outside the Republican Party, which is that we conservatives are a small cabal of ideologues. We are constitutionalists. They are abstractionists. First chapter of Ameritopia. Ronald Reagan, right here, 1977. Government doesn't have the answers. Government exists to preserve our liberty. Government exists to preserve the civil society. I don't care how many ideas Jeb Bush has, or for that matter, Mitch Daniels or Chris Christie or other governors, and said perfectly fine. They can have all the ideas they want. They're not the smartest people in the world. They may be smart people, but there's over 300 million people in this country and a hell of a lot of smart people who know a hell of a lot more about what they're doing than any politician, conservative, liberal, in between, or whatever. We have got to get out of this mindset that is government-centric, that the ideas have to come out of government. The free thinking needs to take place among individuals, not bureaucrats and politicians. They need to follow the Constitution. Now, they can think freely within that context, obviously. But we don't need masterminds dressed up as conservative Republicans any more than we need masterminds dressed up as Karl Marx. Masterminds are masterminds. And the reason we are where we are today is because there's too damn many of them, and because too many Republicans don't believe, as Reagan did, that we're not a small group of ideological purists, as Reagan said, trying to capture a majority. We are the majority, trying to fend off tyranny. Jeb and all the rest. I started with this today because it's fundamental to who we are and where we're going to go. And I can always discuss the other issues too, as I will momentarily. First, I want to tell you about Hillsdale College, a place where Jeb and others need to familiarize themselves with. Folks, what are you doing this 4th of July? Cooking out? Watching fireworks? This year, add something to the list. Reading the Declaration of Independence. Hillsdale College has launched a national campaign to encourage the largest ever reading of the Declaration on July 4th. Here's the key. This won't take place in just one location, but across America in neighborhoods and churches like yours. This July 4th, join citizens around the country who've pledged to read the document that founded our great nation. Go to levinforhillsdale.com. That's Levin for Hillsdale.com. Go there right now to register your commitment to have your own private, family, or public reading. Now, Hillsdale College will even send you a free copy of the Declaration and Constitution just for signing up. This is my challenge to you. Ask others to commit to this national reading as well. Imagine hundreds, thousands, even millions of Americans reading the Declaration of Independence this July 4th. Ask your friends to say, yes, the principles of liberty in the Declaration of Independence are as important today as in 1776. So go to levinforhillsdale.com to sign up and tell everyone you know that they should join us. That's Levin, Levin, for Hillsdale.com.
Mark Levin.
Let's see, I just got an email from Michelle, ABC News Publicity. Hi, Mark. I don't know Michelle, but hi, Michelle. I understand you mentioned on your show yesterday that ABC News senior White House correspondent Jake Tapper previously reported that Fast and Furious started under the Bush administration. Jake has never said or reported that and would appreciate any correction you can offer to the misreporting. Thanks so much, Michelle. Well, we went back and listened, and Michelle is right. So I don't sit here trying to provide false information. That's the information that had been provided to me. We went back and listened, didn't we, Mr. Producer? And Jake did not say that Fast and Furious started under Bush. So my bad and my correction. I think that's 2 in 10 years, but what's right is right, and I was wrong. And he didn't say it started under Bush. So that's to Jake Tapper. I don't know Jake Tapper. I don't think I've ever talked to Jake Tapper. But he deserves the truth, and so do you. Let's take a call. Eric, Chicago University, Sirius Satellite. Are you a student or professor or what?
I'm a rising junior at the University of Chicago, right in Obama's backyard.
Oh, you're a rising junior?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It means that I'm in the summer between my sophomore and junior year.
All right. Go right ahead, my friend.
So anyway, I love your show. When I drive back and forth from Connecticut to Chicago, I always listen to the full thing. I listen on the way home from work. But I don't think I entirely agree with your characterization that conservatism is not an ideology.
Well, make your case.
Sure. So basically an ideology is a set of ideas. And I think you very eloquently put that conservatism...
Slow down. Ideology is not per se, and I'm not even looking at a definition. I'm talking about philosophy. Sure. Ideology is not per se a set of ideas, right? It can be a belief, I suppose. It can be... But go ahead.
A cohesive set of beliefs, right?
No, and that's the point. I mean, I guess Reagan's point, my point, the point of a number of philosophers in the Enlightenment and so forth is, ideology is a rigid adherence to a particular idea or whatever it is, and it's not built on human experience. It's not built on human evidence and that sort of thing. And that's what you can see playing out in America today. Barack Obama's policies, he's going to continue them and, in fact, increase them and expand them, even though they don't work, even though history shows us they can't work. We conservatives say we already know national health care can't work. We know it can't work not because of an ideological view, because it can't work, and it never has worked. Individual choices is what works.
Well, Mark, I completely agree that the liberal ideology is the wrong one, but I would say you seem to...
No, you don't agree, because you're saying it's the wrong one. Conservatism, have you ever read any Edmund Burke?
In fact, I have read the entire works of Mr. Edmund Burke.
Well, what have you read?
Locke.
Hold on. What have you read of Edmund Burke?
Reflections on the Revolution in France, as well as other collected writings.
And what does he say?
One sec, if you want, I can go and grab I actually have it on my bookshelf right here.
What does he say?
What does Mr. Burke say? Well, Mr. Burke...
What does Edmund Burke say?
That the revolution was bad. I mean...
No. Hold on now. What is Edmund Burke's... Let's just give it sort of a thumbnail summary. What is his viewpoint?
His viewpoint is that upsetting the traditional order, as the French Revolution did, was detrimental to French.
I'm going to hold on to you, but I'm going to hold on to you because this is a very, very. I hope the audience stays with us. I think this is a very, very important segment. Don't hang up, Eric. We'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Hour 2 on the Mark Levin Show, where we lace philosophy and politics and current events and history and entertainment all together. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. A few more minutes on what I think is important. Our friend Eric, Chicago University, says, look, I'm a conservative, but, conservatism is an ideology much like liberalism. Disagree on these things, but ideology is ideology. I agree with one and disagree with the other. Right, Eric?
Well, Mark, I got to disagree a little bit. I'd say that conservatism is an ideology unlike liberalism in that it emphasizes individual freedoms and the right.
Why does it do that? Why does it do that?
Why does it do that? Well, that's a very interesting question. I mean, I think it was Burke himself who said something along the lines of, man has no right to what is not his benefit or what is not reasonable. I don't remember the exact quote. It was somewhere in the middle of Reflections.
All right, well, if you don't remember what he said, then don't... But hold on, slow down, because I have an audience to deal with, too.
Sure.
Here's my question to you, Eric. Why are you... What is it about the individual human being that attracts you to a quote-unquote conservative ideology?
I believe that people are born... and I believe this very strongly, with an inalienable set of rights, and that those rights constitute the core of any conservative ideology, upon which are built a few varying ones. As you said, there's a big tent, but the core of that...
don't... Hold on. I want to stick to the point. And why do you believe that?
Why?
Yeah, why?
Well, because I think that conservatism has almost like a theme of respect for...
No. Why? Hold on now. Why do you believe that an individual is born with unalienable rights, as it says in the Declaration, or inalienable rights, as you say? Why?
Why? Well,
Hold on now. Is that mere ideology, or is that because you know enough to know that's man's nature? What is it?
But knowing enough to know man's nature isn't the basis. I would say the Constitution enshrines those rights.
Well, stop. Hey, the Constitution comes later. We're talking about philosophy now, not the Constitution.
Sure.
My question to you is, you said, I believe that an individual is born with inalienable rights. And I said, why?
Probably because of the way I was raised, honestly.
Okay, I mean, so that's it? The way you were raised? That's it? So what are all those books doing on your shelf? All right, now hold on now. Observation, thinking, and reading. Did you just say that?
I did.
So in other words, reason,
sure.
Recognition of realities, right?
Absolutely.
History, that is experience, human experience, correct?
Absolutely.
Certain traditions that hold our society together, right?
100%.
Well, that's not ideology, is it?
Well,
no, it's
is
not.
It not?
No, it's not. Ideology is, look, we're going to have a centralized government, a centralized health care plan, a centralized this, a centralized that. We're going to have bureaus that do this, even when they don't work. Well, we're going to do more of it. We're going to raise tax. Hold on. This is your little, I'm your adjunct professor here. Just stick with me. We're going to have more of this stuff, not because it works, but because I think this is the way society should be arranged. That's an ideology. What you were expressing, you just said, is something that you reasoned and you saw through experience and you've read through history and tradition. That's the difference, okay?
But Mr. Levin.
And you can call me Mark. Go ahead.
A truly free society?
What's that?
Has there ever been a truly free society?
Well, of course not, because, no, actually, if you read Locke, he says in his second treatise that the closest thing that has ever come to what he writes about, the state of nature of man.
Sure.
I'm trying to answer your question. Hold on a second. I'm trying to answer your question. Mm-hmm. He names 3 or 4 places, and remember, he's writing in the 1500s, and he said, among other places, among other places, he says, America.
He was writing about America in the 1500s?
No, you didn't hear what I said, did you?
Oh, sorry, pardon me. But
no, if you're not going to listen to me, I have to go. He said, among other places where this exists, is in America. Oh, yeah, he said America. And this is crucial, and I have it in my book, too, because he was challenged the way you're challenging me. So, well, where does this place exist? And he says, this place, and look over at America. Yes, we were called America.
Yeah. I guess
right.
my only question then is...
We got time for one more, then I got to go on before I lose my entire audience.
Yeah, thank you very much for the amount of time, but if the only time, or one of the only times, was late 18th century, 17th century America, then is there any hope that we can ever go back to that point in which we had those freedoms?
Well, I mean, I can't predict to you. Look, the history of man, unfortunately, is of organized man, that is government. The history of government is tyranny. There are certain exceptions. Milton Friedman brought up this. There's certain exceptions. We're one of them.
Yeah.
And so we know what creates tyranny, and in almost every case it is a centralized, overbearing, ubiquitous government. Whether it's in the hands of one individual, a monarch, or a dictator, or so forth, or in the hands of a bunch of people, like during the French Revolution and the Reign of Terror that followed that. So, our viewpoints, our mindset, is not an ideology. It's one built on experience and reason and tradition and thought and all these other things. Eric, I got to go, my friend.
Thank you very much, Mr. Levin.
All right, take care. There he goes. Good guy, don't you think? I said Locke in the 1500s. I meant in the 1600s. Sorry. I just want to be accurate, as accurate as I can. Yeah, and this is an interesting debate, and I have this all the time. May not be interesting to you, so I'm going to move on. Now, I know it'll interest you. It's a real downer for me, by the way. Nancy Pelosi. You see how we talk and think, folks, you and I, all of us together, in this national town hall meeting? We get into politics and so, but we get into other issues too, don't we? Like the meaning of life, or representative government, or the founding, or what have you. I don't pat myself or you folks on the back for this. It's just a form in which this can occur, and I don't know of any other form where it can occur in the media. I can come on here and play clip after clip after clip after clip. Look at me, I can play this clip. We all have these clips. We all get them from the same places. The Internet. And we all use them in our own way. But I'm going to use this, Nancy Pelosi clips, not because I need time to run clips. As a matter of fact, I could do without them. But I want to address what Nancy Pelosi says. And Nancy Pelosi has to be one of the dumbest people to ever have been a Speaker of the House. Holder is held in contempt. A law enforcement officer was murdered, shot in the back. Shot in the back. On the border. The Attorney General of Mexico says somewhere around 200 Mexicans have been murdered as a result of the Obama administration's fast and furious policies. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to know what happened. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to know why Brian Terry was murdered. She doesn't want to know why 200 Mexicans were murdered. She doesn't want to know why guns in this country, at the direction of the Obama administration, wound up in the hands of drug cartels and other murderous thieves across the border. She only cares about controlling guns owned by law-abiding American citizens. Otherwise, she doesn't want to hear anything. This is a scandal of monumental proportions. And the Democrats don't want to know about it. They're circling the wagons to help cover up for the Obama administration. And Nancy Pelosi's helping to lead that charge. So contemptible is she. Nancy Pelosi, I hold you in contempt. What do you think of that? I just voted. All in favor, aye. You're in contempt. You're in contempt of this nation. So look how she tries to twist this issue, how nefarious she is. It's disgusting. Cut 2, go.
Contempt of Congress to frivolously use that really important vehicle to undermine the person who's assigned to stop the voter suppression in our country.
Stop right there. Wind it back up. Do you understand what a nut job this is? How contemptible Nancy Pelosi is? I have to go from John Locke and Edmund Burke to this downer, this loser. She's trying to actually incite people that the reason Eric Holder was charged with contempt by a committee of Congress is because those members support voter suppression? What is this, race baiting? What is this? Go ahead again. And by the way, hat tip right scoop for the clip. Cut 2, go.
Contempt of Congress to frivolously use that really important vehicle to undermine the person who's assigned to stop the voter suppression in our country. I'm telling you, this is connected. It is no accident. It is a decision, and it is as clear as can be. It's not only to monopolize his time, it's to undermine his name, as he goes forward to protect and defend the Constitution.
Is she drinking? I'm not even joking. Have you noticed what is the deal here, Mr. Producer? What is it with these people? I mean, they all sound like They're point two. It's after happy hour. They're repeating themselves like morons. They're trying to feed us these little pieces of race baiting, of so forth. Like, so in other words, the Republicans on the committee, after what is it, 18 months, 24 months, whatever it is, of trying to get to the bottom of this, of being played as they dragged it out in the Justice Department. We have a murdered American law enforcement official, a couple hundred Mexicans murdered over the border, guns at the direction of our government, upwards of 2,000, being sold to the worst of the worst in Mexico, these drug cartel terrorist types. And she wants to talk about, this is about voter suppression. Nefarious. You know what this is? I'm going to say it. Evil. That's right, I said it. Evil. Pure and simple. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
So Nancy Pelosi would be an example of an ideologue. Not somebody who's reasoning or thoughtful or basing her views on experience or tradition or anything of the sort. She's an ideologue. And ideologues are forced to lie and to contort and to do things like this to advance their ideology. And so she takes a matter of holding or charging Holder with contempt and turns it into a voter suppression issue. Now, this has nothing to do with voter suppression, but it doesn't matter. And she kept doing it during her press conference. Cut 3, go.
Don't forget, they're going after Eric Holder because he is supporting measures to overturn these voter suppression initiatives.
Stop. See, she's a demagogue. She's a propagandist. Because she's an ideologue. Don't forget. They're going after Eric Holder because he's supporting measures to overturn these voter suppression initiatives in the states. There are no voter suppression initiatives in the states. Voter ID laws are trying to ensure that only people who can vote, vote. Cleaning the rolls of illegal aliens and dead people is to ensure that only people who can vote can vote. That's not voter suppression. So the words are twisted, the language is abused, the argument is a diversion. That's an ideologue. Nothing reasoned or rational about what she's doing. It's ideological. It's almost religious in the sense, not good in the good faith sense, but in the sense that she's going to commit to this no matter what the consequences. No matter the consequences. Because she's a statist. Because she's a mastermind. Because they have a utopian ideal and ideology. And they're not going to let anything upset it. Nothing. But I want you to listen to her voice in particular here. And by the way, she did this throughout the press conference. We decided not to record all the clips or to play all the clips. But listen to how she treats you. Listen to how she talks. Cut 3, go.
Don't forget, they're going after Eric Holder because he is supporting measures to overturn these voter suppression initiatives in the states. This is no accident. It is no coincidence. It is a plan on the part of the Republicans.
She almost sounds like a conspiracy nut. Right? In her hushed tone and her repetition. The big lie has to be told over and over and over and over again to get through to people. Do you realize Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, Barack Obama, the whole bunch of them, how much they disrespect their constituents or what they believe are their constituents? Do you realize how stupid and manipulative they are? They believe their supporters are stupid who can be manipulated so easily? There's nothing rational about this. There's nothing substantive about this. It's an ideology. I'll be right back.
Where Americans meet to defend liberty and defeat tyranny. Call the Mark Levin Show now at 877-381-3811.
Well, that was a sad interlude with Nancy Pelosi, from John Locke to Nancy Pelosi. But let's go back to Locke for a moment. I really like that kid who goes to the University of Chicago, because it gives me an excuse to talk a little bit more about this stuff. Locke wrote an essay in 1690 that I reference in Meritopia in Chapter 6. It's called An Essay Concerning Human Understanding. If you read anything in Meritopia, and you don't want to read the whole thing, read this chapter. Because his understanding of human nature and how man gains human understanding and knowledge had an enormous effect on your founding fathers, and provides the distinction between what is reason and rationality and understanding and experience versus ideology. And he dramatically distinguished his philosophical approach from the utopians. He said, since it is the understanding that sets man above the rest of sensible beings and gives him all the advantage and dominion which he has over them, it is certainly a subject, even for its nobleness, worth our labor to inquire into. For Locke, the individual has value and dignity and significance. He's not advancing a dogma. He's not advancing a fantasy. And as if lecturing the utopians, the Nancy Pelosi's, he said, when we know our own strength, we shall the better know what to undertake with hopes of success. And when we have well surveyed the powers of our own minds and made some estimate what we may expect from them, we shall not be inclined either to sit still and not to set our thoughts on work at all, in despair of knowing anything, nor on the other side question everything and disclaim all knowledge, because some things are not to be understood. He said, I thought that the first step towards satisfying the several inquiries the mind of man was apt to run into was to take a survey of our own understanding, examine our own powers, and see to what things they were adapted. Until that was done, I suspected that we began at the wrong end, and in vain sought for satisfaction in a quiet and secure possession of truths that most concerned us, whilst we let loose our thoughts into the vast ocean of being, as if all the boundless extent were the natural and unbounded possessions of our understandings, wherein there was nothing that escaped its decisions or escaped its comprehension. What's he saying there? What he's saying there is, look, we need to understand the nature of man, our strengths, our weaknesses, our limits, and so forth. We have to start at that end, not the other end of recreating society. And he goes into great length about this, and I quote him at some length. And Locke found that experience, uncovered through observation and right reason, was decisive to comprehending man's nature. And he said famously, now you may never have heard of it, but philosophers consider this relatively famous, let us then suppose the mind to be, as we say, white paper, void of all characters, without any ideas. How comes it to be furnished? In other words, where do we get these ideas from? Whence comes it by the vast store which the busy and boundless fancy of man has painted on it, with an almost endless variety? Whence has it all the materials of reason and knowledge? Where do these things come from? He says, to this I answer in one word. Experience. Experience. The individual's experience, human experience. In that all our knowledge is founded, and from that it ultimately derives itself. Our observations employed either about external, sensible objects, or about the internal operations of our own minds, perceived and reflected on by ourselves, is that what supplies our understandings with all the materials of thinking. These two are the fountains of knowledge, from where all ideas we have, or can naturally have, do spring. Now notice the difference. The earnest effort to try and figure, where do we come up with our ideas? How is it that our mind functions? How do we understand things? Where does knowledge come from? He says, experience. Experience through reason. And that can include reasoning, the acceptance of tradition and faith and so forth, but whatever it is. Now, I'm not going to do it here. When you read the Communist Manifesto, there's none of this in there. None of it. He rejects it all. Marx has the answer. For you and you and you, for everybody. No matter who you are, where you are, no matter your background, what you want to do, Marx has the answer. The worker's paradise. And Locke's point is, obviously Marx came much later, but let's just say, that's got it the wrong way around. And Reagan's point was, that's an ideologue. That's a purist ideologue. We are not purist ideologues. Our belief system, our principles come from human experience, come from understanding the individual. So I've come full circle from Jeb Bush, the first hour, John Locke, Nancy Pelosi, John Locke, and Reagan in between, and now. And I'm doing this because you, if you're a conservative, you should be very, very proud. You should be very, very proud because you're a thoughtful human being. You're a rational human being. It doesn't mean you need to know all about philosophy and everything, but what you do, if you think about it, You look at experience. Well, that can't work. You look at individual free will. How does the individual function? You look at all these things, and you've come to the conclusion that you're a conservative or a constitutionalist. Or let me put it to you this way. You're not a statist. You're not a utopian. Because experience tells you, reason tells you, knowledge tells you that that's tyranny. That's John Locke's point. You're starting from the right end of thinking, of analyzing things. The liberal starts from the wrong end. And when it's proven to be wrong, they keep pushing it anyway. Because they are committed to an ideology, or if you will, a secular religion. It doesn't matter what human experience shows. It doesn't matter individual understanding. It doesn't matter individual free will. In fact, all of that gets in the way of their ideology, of their secular religion. That's why they demand uniformity. That's why eventually you get various levels of coercion. Because they're ruling against the nature of man. Because they do not care what you think, what you understand, how you reason in your own life, with your own family, your own business, your own job, whatever. That's beside the point, because they start at the wrong end. The wrong end, where they seek to impose a new society, one they cannot even define, the contours of which they can't even explain. They seek to impose that on you, against your will. Whereas we say, no, 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 no. The individual. The individual. We know enough about history. We know enough about experience. We've gained enough knowledge over the ages to know that can't work. As a matter of fact, it's diabolical. Matter of fact, it's evil. It's not natural for the individual. It's inhumane. Because we start with the individual, understanding the individual. I hope for a lot of you this has been interesting, if you've stuck with us from hour 1 to hour 2. Because it does project itself, all this kind of talk and thinking and writing, on current events, on political events that are going on. And I'm hoping it strengthens your resolve. That's why I wrote Ameritopia. Yes, it's a tough book. It could have been a lot tougher. And the point is that you're not an ideologue. You're a rational human being. When you hear Nancy Pelosi spinning lies, twisting language, abusing words, the way she does it, there is an ideologue. An ideologue, in her case, a demagogue. And you shake your head, don't you? You say to yourself, wait a minute, what the hell? Because you know. You know she's lying. And how do you know she's lying? Because you understand how the individual works. You understand knowledge and reason. And you're reasoning. And you say, wait a minute, she is lying. For X, Y, A, B, C reasons. Now, back to reality. Does Nancy Pelosi, does she in either of those clips sound like she has any compassion whatsoever for that murdered Border Patrol agent? None. Any compassion for the hundreds of Mexicans, innocent Mexicans, murdered by these drug cartels in Mexico? None. None. Just another day at the propaganda factory for Nancy Pelosi, where she has to repeat herself to convince you that an effort to hold an attorney general responsible for the actions of his department, to hold an administration responsible for telling the truth, is a diabolical effort to stop minorities from voting. You have to have a pretty perverse mind to twist it into that pretzel. Don't you? And she does. That's who she is. All right, LifeLock. Last month, the Federal Retirement Thrift Investment Board, which manages a retirement savings plan for federal employees, began notifying approximately over 120,000 participants and payees that in July 2011, it was infiltrated by sophisticated cyber attacks. Files storing the names, addresses, the Social Security numbers were accessed, putting those affected at serious risk of fraud and identity theft. Identity thieves are shrewd. They're conniving. And they're targeting your checking and savings accounts. They're after your cash. They're after your retirement. LifeLock Ultimate is the new science in ID theft protection. They brought it to you, my beloved audience, first. I've got it, and you need it. LifeLock Ultimate is the most comprehensive ID theft protection ever invented. Ever. It goes way beyond guarding your identity, your good name, and your credit. Now, obviously, those are essential, no question about it. But now LifeLock is the only ID theft protection company that monitors bank accounts for takeover fraud. Now, LifeLock can't protect you or your bank accounts if you're not a member. So visit lifelock.com/Levin, Levin, for details and get my special 10% discount. Or just call and use my name, Levin, to get my 10% discount. And here's where you call. 800-457-LOCK, 800-457-LOCK. That's 888-457-LOCK.
Mark Levin.
All right, now I'll be a regular talk show host. Look here on Politico. If the Supreme Court rules against President Barack Obama's health care law next week, Speaker John Boehner doesn't want House Republicans, quote, spiking the ball, unquote. In a memo sent to the House Republican Conference today, as lawmakers headed out of town, Boehner warned against celebration, gave his colleagues a peek at next week's messaging and strategy. We will not celebrate at a time when millions of our fellow Americans remain out of work, the national debt has exceeded the size of our nation's economy, health costs continue to rise, and small businesses are struggling to hire, Boehner wrote in a memo provided to Politico, no doubt by his staff. Obamacare has contributed to all of these problems. Repealing it completely is part of the solution, but it's only one part. Now, in the memo, Boehner said the House Republican Conference Chairman Jeb Hensarling, Representatives Kathy McMorris Rogers, and Tom Price would help to lead our response efforts following the court's decision. Mr. Producer, make sure Kathy McMorris Rogers, Jeb Hensarling, and Tom Price are not on the program, okay? Got it. Now, Mr. Boehner, let me tell you something. Depending on how the Supreme Court rules, if the Supreme Court throws out this law, we have reason for celebration, sir. And not muted celebration, but full-throated celebration. You want to know why, Mr. Boehner? Because that tells us there's at least one occasion where the system worked. And we shouldn't be muted about our response. We should be elated. Many people have worked very, very, very hard to try and stop this law. We should not only be celebrating if the Supreme Court throws the whole law out, we should be celebrating the justices who did it. And we're going to have to defend them because the other side will try to destroy them, being the ideologues that they are. But we already know we cannot count on Speaker Boehner or his little team of propagandists because now he's saying that because we have high unemployment, people are losing their businesses, that we shouldn't show any celebration or emotion when the Supreme Court, if the Supreme Court does the right thing. More perverse thinking. Complete lack of leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, if the Supreme Court throws out this entire statute, I suspect you're going to be thrilled, aren't you? We live another day under our Constitution, what's left of it. You bet we the people will celebrate. You bet we the people will speak up. And we're going to do it loudly and proudly. And we're going to thank those justices who did the right thing, assuming the court does the right thing. As a great nation, I don't know how we come up with a Speaker of the House like this. I really don't. A man who's afraid of his own shadow. A man who drags down the Republicans in the House. It's not about spiking the ball, Mr. Boehner. It's about celebrating liberty. You should try it every now and then. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, my friends. This is the all-powerful Hour 3. I am Mark Levin. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know what happened 224 years ago today? Your Constitution was ratified. We became a constitutional republic. 224 years ago today. Mr. Producer, all the prep I've been doing since last night, into this morning, into this afternoon, right before the program on the air, did you see a single politician celebrating this?
Absolutely not.
No, neither did I. Did the President of the United States put out a statement today? No. Nothing. Not a word. Now, as History.com so well puts it, beginning on December 7th, 1787, 5 states, Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Georgia, and Connecticut, ratified the Constitution in quick succession. But other states, especially Massachusetts, opposed the document. You want to know why? They felt it failed to reserve undelegated powers to the states and lacked basic constitutional protections for the individual, like freedom of speech and religion and the press. See, Massachusetts wasn't always of the political mindset that it is today. So in February 1788, a compromise was reached under which Massachusetts and other states would agree to ratify the Constitution with the assurance that these amendments that were generally agreed to in advance would be immediately proposed once the first Congress met. We've talked about this, and it's in Ameritopia. Okay. The Constitution was then narrowly ratified in Massachusetts. John Adams had to twist arms. Sam Adams fought him. Followed by Maryland and South Carolina. But they needed 9 states. That's only 8. They needed 9 of the 13 states. On June 21st, 224 years ago today, 1788, New Hampshire became that 9th state to ratify the Constitution. And then it was agreed that the new government would begin on March 4, 1789. In June 1788, Virginia finally ratified the Constitution, followed by New York in July. Now, on September 25, 1789, the first Congress of the United States adopted those 12 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, 10 of which were subsequently ratified by the states. And they were ratified in 1791. You folks in North Carolina and Rhode Island, you're thinking to yourselves, what about us? We were among the 13 original states, the original colonies. Well, it wasn't until November 1789 that North Carolina became the 12th state to ratify the Constitution. Rhode Island, which opposed federal control of the currency and was upset about compromises on slavery, finally ratified the Constitution on May 29, 1790, by 2 votes, the last of the original colonies. It's the oldest written constitution in operation in the world, to the extent it's in operation at all. 224 years ago today, New Hampshire, the 9th state to ratify, making it official, the Constitution of the United States, and the President of the United States doesn't say a damn thing about it. Nothing. The Speaker of the House, to the best of my knowledge, and I'll correct it tomorrow if I'm wrong, says nothing about it. The Majority Leader in the Senate, well, he can't put 7 words together, so of course he didn't say anything about it either. But I thought you'd want to know. Now, Let's move along here. All this talk about how Obama saved Detroit is a great piece in the Washington Examiner I've been meaning to get to by Con Carroll. And he refers to a study or an essay by bankruptcy expert and George Mason University Law School professor Todd Zwicky and Heritage Foundation labor expert James Shirk. You want to know the truth? Bush initiated the auto bailout in 2008, as Carroll writes, when he diverted parts of the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or TARP, to GM and Chrysler to keep them running through the first several months of the Obama presidency. And he did that, ladies and gentlemen, in violation of the Constitution, in violation of the separation of powers doctrine. You'll recall Congress refused to do what Bush did, and he pulled money out of TARP, which had nothing to do with GM and Chrysler, and used that money. Right, Jeb? We have to, have to think out of the box. In exchange for an eventual $80 billion total in bailout funds, $80 billion, the Obama administration forced both Chrysler and GM into bankruptcy. Both firms ceased to exist as they had for decades and then sold, quote-unquote, all their assets to a new General Motors and a new Chrysler company. Now, in a normal bankruptcy process, Con Carroll points out, a bankruptcy court has a number of powers at its disposal to ensure that, number one, the emerging companies are financially competitive, number two, creditor interests are protected, and number three, all workers are treated fairly. And Obama either abused or ignored all of these powers, always to the benefits of the union and always to the detriment of taxpayers and non-union workers, not to mention investors. That's what these professors, or I should say professor and labor expert, determined. First, Section 1113 of the Bankruptcy Code empowers courts to rewrite labor contracts to make the surviving companies more competitive. Obama didn't exercise that power. I repeat, he refused to exercise that power. Even Obama's car czar, Steve Ratner, recently admitted, quote, "We should have asked the UAW to do a bit more. We did not ask any UAW member to take a cut in their pay," unquote. How do you go through a bankruptcy this dramatic and the employees are utterly unaffected? Second, a fundamental principle of bankruptcy law is the presumption that similarly situated creditors should receive similar treatment. Obama violated this in a number of ways, always to the benefit of the unions, most famously paying off Chrysler's unsecured union benefit trust fund instead of Chrysler's secured creditors. So Grandma and Grandpa and other people who invested in Chrysler stock as part of their pensions, as an example, and so forth, secured creditors first in line, while they went to the back of the line. The unsecured creditors, like the Union Benefit Trust Fund, went to the front of the line. This is unbelievable. We knew it, but just to repeat it is unbelievable. Finally, Obama protected some union pensioners while leaving similarly situated non-union workers vulnerable. Specifically, GM gave $1 billion to Delphi's union retirees, but gave their non-union retirees nothing. All told, Obama's violations of bankruptcy law made the bailout of GM and Chrysler $26.5 billion more expensive than it had to be. And according to Obama's own Treasury Department, taxpayers stand to lose $23 billion if GM stock were sold today. This was written a few days ago. The stock market has plummeted, so we are going to lose a hell of a lot more. In other words, Obama turned what should have been a $3.5 billion taxpayer gain into a $23 billion taxpayer loss. You and I were subsidizing the unions. But this is just the immediate damage done to our nation's bottom line. Obama's undermining of our bankruptcy process and the rule of law is incalculable. Quote, "The free market has never been a free license to take whatever you want from whomever you can. It only works when there are rules of the road to ensure that competition is fair, open, and honest." So said Obama in Osawatomie, Kansas last year. in what will go down in history as his great Marxist speech. That's me speaking. Well, of course, Obama's right. The free market only works when the rules of the road are honored. Unfortunately, Obama's handling of GM and the Chrysler bankruptcy, in a case study, proving that he is incapable of ensuring that competition is fair, open, and honest. Ladies and gentlemen, we were taken to the shower once again. We were ripped off once again by Obama. You and I had billions and billions of dollars of our hard-earned income taxed to subsidize one of his favorite constituent groups. And the bankruptcy laws, I said the bankruptcy laws were violated. This is just stunning what this man gets away with. But don't worry now, if the Supreme Court strikes down Obamacare, don't celebrate, just whisper. Whisper, always whisper. By the way, whisper about everything. Don't bring up Bill Ayers. Whisper. No Bill Ayers, no Obamacare. Oh, don't talk about immigration either. No. That's now the new third rail. Ooh, whisper. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Mark Levin.
How about Vicki, Charleston, South Carolina, the great WTMA. How are you, Vicki?
I'm great. I wanted to thank you. Every time I listen to you, I learn something. And I've been calling myself an independent because I didn't agree with the Democrats. I don't agree with the Republicans. But after your little lesson this morning with that young man, I realized that I'm actually a conservative. And so I just wanted to thank you. I understood exactly what you were saying. I got to the point where I was actually finishing your sentences. So I just wanted to thank you. I thank you every day that I listen to you. I learn.
Well, aren't you kind? You're very, very kind. Now, what kind of bird do you have there?
Oh, I've got 2 cockatiels. I actually have 6. I share another passion of yours. I have 6 dogs, 6 cats, and 2 birds.
Oh, my Lord.
All adopted.
Well,
and
good for you.
We love giving to our local shelter and to the ASPCA, and wounded warriors are very important to us.
Oh,
too,
yes.
So.
Well, you
But
are.
I did
You
want to
guys
say
are great.
something else about Nancy Pelosi. You know, every time she opens her mouth, I'm just absolutely amazed that she can come up with some of the things that she comes up with, and it almost destroys my day. I have to turn her off.
Yeah, she really, not just by her actions, her demeanor and her statements, she really drags the country down, doesn't she?
She is a cold-blooded woman. She really does not care about anything except for herself. I don't know where she thinks she's going to be or placed in this utopia, but she's just, I guess, what they would call a useful idiot, and she'll be tossed aside as soon as, you know, Obama or whoever it is that's in charge gets what they want. But
I agree with you, except for the useful part.
Well, she's useful to some degree. And the thing about the Democrats is, as long as they keep saying the same thing, it doesn't matter whether it's true or not. If you say it enough, it becomes a truth to some people, even if they don't have the facts. And it absolutely makes me crazy. And I don't hear the truth on TV. It doesn't matter what station I'm listening to. I don't hear the complete truth. Even on Fox, which, you know, I watch regularly, I have to turn it off and I have to listen to you because you are really, truthfully, the only one that gives me what I need. And
well,
I
you're
appreciate
very kind.
that.
Well, you're very kind, and I'm thrilled you do that. You adopt so many of those animals. Thank you, Vicki. God bless you, my friend. Now, Fox is very good. What would we do without it, honestly? Now, there's a couple idiots on there, like everywhere else. But all in all, that's very, very good news channel. Certainly my favorite. Steve in Lodi, California, the great KSFO, he says, look, we shouldn't be celebrating on this Obamacare. Go ahead, give it a shot.
Good afternoon, great one. I want to thank you for the best birthday president in the world getting a chance to talk with you, sir.
Well, thank you. Now I'm going to be very nice to you. Go ahead.
Well, I do want to apologize for my state producing someone like Nancy Pelosi, but I do, for once, have to agree with John Boehner. Every second that our government spent on this health care debacle, we are not going to get back. Now, while I pray that the Supreme Court sides with the Constitution, this is going to be a very sober victory, in my opinion, and I do not believe it should be celebrated.
Now, why? Why is it a sober victory if they throw the whole thing out, as an example?
Because it comes down to the time and resources that we spent, the government spent, pushing.
Listen, I agree with your point. That point is a good point. That's not Boehner's point.
Mm-hmm.
Don't elevate Boehner's argument. Boehner's argument is, look, we'll look bad.
Well, perhaps I'm giving him too much credit.
Yeah, believe me, you are.
But if I were him, and believe me, I'm sure there are plenty of people more qualified than me, but if I were him, I would not be doing it. I would be doing everything I can to just try and reverse what damage has been done and get back to getting to the economy and people who are out of work.
I know, but we need to acknowledge, and I think we really have to do it, we need to acknowledge when one branch of the government is functioning properly, and in fact, when we've come within centimeters of losing what's left of our constitutional republic, because we know Obamacare is the vessel through which they wanted to pour the rest of their dreams, that is the left. I mean, we have to acknowledge that, and we should be very happy about it. Your point about all the money that's been spent, all the time that's been wasted, we can't control that. And, of course, we need to make that point. And we need to put the responsibility where it belongs. But if, I say if, and I don't know, the court throws it out, we ought to be really happy about it.
Some people talk about the Tea Party. We are the Tea Party. Call in now. 877-381-3811.
Last item of the evening. Thank me. From Slate.com. I had this yesterday, but I need to get to it right now. By Matthew, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. Yglesias. Anyway, at a lunch roundtable with columnists earlier today, that would be yesterday, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi urged Obama to avoid a new debt ceiling showdown by stating that a statutory borrowing limit is inconsistent with Section 4 of the 14th Amendment, which states that, quote, the validity of the public debt of the United States shall not be questioned, unquote. Here we go again. She at first referred to this possibility obliquely while making a larger point about the lack of cooperative spirit between the Republican Party and Obama, but clarified her stance in response to further questions, saying, I would like to see the Constitution used to protect the country's full faith and credit. Now, she didn't offer a legal argument in favor of the position, but argued on policy grounds that you can't put the country through the uncertainty again. This isn't just about credit ratings, she said. It's about the dynamism, I should say, of our economy. Last summer, the impeached pervert former president, Bill Clinton, also endorsed this approach, and an anonymous member of Congress alleged that Pelosi privately supported it too. But at the time, Obama indicated his administration lawyers were not persuaded the constitutional argument is correct, but as you and I both know, that changes with the wind. Let me tell you something. This administration is lawless, and I can see Obama doing this. That is, raising the debt ceiling without congressional approval. And the reason is, if you litigate it, by the time the court catches up with it, 6 months, 3 months, 12 months, 2 years have gone by. I'm telling you, these people are evil. And I'm going to use that word now. You backbenchers out there, you use it too. you other hosts. They're evil. 224 years ago today, the Constitution was ratified, and today it's in tatters. Now, what's wrong with what Pelosi and Clinton and the rest of these people want to do? We talked about it last year this time. Former Circuit Court judge, great lawyer, professor, Hoover Institution scholar, he pointed out, and I pointed out, but I will quote him, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 2 empowers Congress, and only Congress, quote, to borrow money on the credit of the United States, unquote. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 words that even a moron who was Speaker of the House should be able to digest very easily. Without congressional authorization, the president may no more borrow money than he could make new criminal laws, declare war, or change our immigration laws. But wait a minute, he did that. The debt ceiling is simply the limit Congress has imposed on how much money the country may borrow. The executive branch cannot constitutionally borrow a dime in excess of that limit. Section 4 of the 14th Amendment does not create a backdoor method for the president to borrow more money without congressional authorization. Do you understand how these people think? For Congress to limit the amount of debt does not question the validity of the debt that has already been authorized by law. At most, it means that paying the public debts and pension obligations of the United States as they become due has priority over all other spending. Each month, the Treasury takes in about $175 billion in new revenues. These are more than sufficient to pay principal and interest when due, as well as pension obligations. We've been in this debate before. And if we reach the debt ceiling, the Treasury will be compelled to reduce spending other than these payments to bring current expenditures in line with current receipts. That's what we call families have to do. And you see, they don't want to do that. They don't want to cut spending beyond the obligations that are already set. Interest, payments, and so forth. And pensions, rather, so forth. So, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 2. Congress, only Congress, can borrow money on the credit of the United States. This is a primary legislative function. The 14th Amendment has nothing to do with it. Just as the Commerce Clause doesn't support Obamacare. Just as the immigration laws don't empower the President of the United States to violate the immigration laws. Just as the Appointments Clause of the Constitution doesn't empower the President to make appointments for them without the advice and consent of the Senate. Just as our entire history doesn't permit the President of the United States on his own to unilaterally decide what laws he'll enforce and what laws he won't enforce, like the Defense of Marriage Act. You see where I'm going with this? I think this president is quite capable of issuing another blow against the Constitution. And I'm telling you, folks, we are so close to this tyranny. It's just almost unbearable. Now, many of you out there have problems with Romney. I have issues with Romney. But I don't care. This president must be defeated. If you love your Constitution, he must be defeated. That doesn't mean Romney walks on water. I promise you he doesn't. And in fact, if he is elected, you and I are going to have to work hard to do everything we can to advance a constitutional agenda. But we have a different man in the White House who spends his time trying to figure out how to trash this country. He calls it fundamentally transform. You know what he means. And I cannot believe, still, I hear people say, I don't know what I'm going to do at the ballot box. You don't know what you're going to do? Well, then, you don't want to conserve the Constitution. Now, I've been a critic of Romney. I could be a critic of him tonight, some of the things he's saying. And I issue constructive criticism all the time, and I'm going to continue to do it. But ladies and gentlemen, this has to stop. This has to stop. Montesquieu said, when our public officials have lost their virtue, we have lost our republic. Montesquieu said, and Locke before him, that we must have 3 separate branches of government if we're going to have a republic. Every day, this man and his acolytes are scheming on how to destroy this system. Look at Pelosi. I just told you that she's urging, if there's a debt ceiling fight, for the President of the United States to seize congressional power under Article 1, and with a snap of 2 fingers, exercise power he doesn't have and no president has ever exercised. This is the blueprint of the statists. This is their blueprint. Tyranny is their blueprint. When they don't have power, that is, they don't control the presidency and Congress, they insist that the president act unilaterally. I don't know how any rational, decent citizen of this country can remain aligned with this Democrat leadership. I don't know. I don't know how you do it. The lawlessness, the ruthlessness, the evil. I don't know how. How you stand with them. Because this is dangerous stuff. Let me repeat. The 14th Amendment in no way empowers the President of the United States to assume legislative spending and debt powers. That's just absurd. It's idiotic. And we have a former President of the United States, Bill Clinton, who said Obama should have done it last time. We have a former Speaker of the House who's urging him to do it this time. It's Obama in Wonderland. That's where we are. Obama in Wonderland. Backbenchers, you can steal that one too. Obama in Wonderland. We will link to all of these stories so you know that I'm not making them up on MarkLevinShow.com, the greatest website in not just radio, period. I don't know if you've been there lately, but MarkLevinShow.com, we have all these articles. We link to them. We give them attribution. You should make use of them, circulate them, tweet the links, get them out there. You are the Paul and Paulette Reveres, as we say. And one of the great groups out there who's trying to get the truth out is the Media Research Center. We really can't rely on the national media to tell the truth about anything, especially not this year. Their coverage of the Wisconsin recall election, as an example, was absolutely laughable. And the Media Research Center's newsbusters.org website exposed them completely. The left-wing media tried for months to influence that election, and when they didn't get the result they were hoping for, they tried to spin their way out of it. And newsbusters.org was there, day in and day out, shining a light on their lies and distortions. Newsbusters.org is a great website. You should bookmark it. Okay, we all know the media has a left-wing bias, but the MRC documents it for all of us on their Newsbusters site every day, so there's no way anyone can deny it. They perform a valuable public service. And if you want to stay informed, make newsbusters.org part of your daily read. Like I say, bookmark it. By the way, don't forget to go to the MRC's other important website, tellthetruth2012.org. If you go to tellthetruth2012.org right now and sign their petition, demanding the media tell the truth, they'll send you a free Don't Believe the Liberal Media bumper sticker. That's tellthetruth2012.org.
Mark Levin.
Our final call, not least, Sean Haneskew. How are you, my friend?
Bird, I don't want to hear it from you.
Now, why do you take my name for you and use it against? Are you trying to preempt me? Yeah, that won't work.
How are you, my brother? You know, I got an interview.
I bring you on here, and you're attacking me.
No, I love you, but you always make fun of me for tweeting, and meanwhile you tweet yourself.
By the way, why are you so loud?
I don't know why I'm loud, because maybe they potted me up too high.
Can you lower him just a little bit? He sounds a little like Rosie O'Donnell there.
Sorry about that.
Now,
you know what I'm doing
what?
here? You know what I'm upset about?
No.
I'm going to interview in just a couple of minutes here an elderly couple, Kent Terry and Josephine Terry.
Yes.
They're the mother and father of this murdered Border Patrol agent. And we got this White House propagandist out there today saying, "Oh, Republicans are doing this for political gain. It's a fishing expedition." You know something?
What about Pelosi? That this is
guns to criminals,
yes,
murderers, cartel, drug dealers, kidnappers.
Sean Hannity, has this administration shown any sympathy for the death of this man?
I'm going to ask him that in a few minutes here. But
did you hear Pelosi today saying that this is about voter suppression? Has she lost her mind? Answer yes.
That, and she said she could arrest Karl Rove. And
really,
she's just absurd. But I'm going to tell you, I'm looking at this elderly couple, Mark.
Yep.
And do you know how hard this interview is to do?
Yeah.
I mean, these parents lost their hero son. It's
over government.
We have a government that won't give them answers.
I know.
They provided the guns that killed them.
It's sick, and he was shot in the back, by the way.
It's unbelievable. These guys put their ass on the line for us every day. And they deserve better than our government providing them the guns.
And you realize at these press conferences, nobody asks Obama about this because they're afraid he'll lecture them?
They don't ask him anything. I'm so sick and tired of it. We got 138 days of this crap to go, and then we're done.
Who else do you have on your show? And geez, what you're all worked up.
Mark, I'm looking I'm looking at this couple, and I'm going to be interviewing, and I'm mad.
Who else is on your program, by the way?
We got Liz Cheney. He's going to be debating Juan Williams. We got Eric Bolling, and
I've had enough of him. By the way, go ahead.
Liz Cheney versus Juan Williams, Eric Bolling and Angela McGlowan, and then I was on the campaign trail with Governor Romney. We're going to show more of the interview with his wife, Ann Romney, tonight.
Well, I'm a big fan of Eric Bolling.
Eric's I got to tell you something. First of all, The Five is a great show.
It's a great show.
And secondly, he's a great guy, and so is everybody on that show.
Almost. And he's solid as a rock, Bowling.
Hey, be nice. Beckel's a nice guy.
I'm not talking about Beckel. He's one of my buddies. You don't know who I'm talking about. Or
yeah,
whom I'm talking about.
I usually know everybody that you're mad at.
The Five.
I can't. Yeah. I have no idea.
The Five. That beats the One over there in the White House. I can tell you that. Now, so Juan Williams is on. What for?
He's going to debate Liz Cheney over this Fast and Furious scandal.
So Juan Williams used to be an intellectually honest liberal. Now he's just in the tank. I'm sorry, my friend. It's true.
Well, I don't know. He definitely has gone more left, and I'm not really sure. Oh, you know who else is on TV tonight?
No.
Louis Gohmert.
Oh, now that's a great guy.
He's on a great. And you know what? Another friend of yours, Jedediah Bila.
She's terrific.
Yeah, no, she's awesome.
You know what? I'm going to have to watch.
What do you mean you're going to have to watch? You say you watch every night. You send me notes during the show saying my tie is ugly and that my hair is out of place.
Here's the problem.
And then you say you don't have enough makeup on. Powder your nose like I powder my head.
And then I also say, just keep bringing the pretty women on. Now, by the way, my refrigerator broke, so I had to keep going out and getting stuff to eat.
Let me guess what we're going to get to. Let me go through what we're going to get to.
No, I did that last night already.
All right, we're going to get a little steak.
No.
And
this isn't New York. Nothing's open here.
Well, go get a cheeseburger from McDonald's without the cheese because you're lactose intolerant.
You know what I had last night?
Let me guess.
By the way, when did you become a yenta?
Well, I'm not a yenta.
McDonald's.
I'm not the guy that had double bypass and a heart attack and 3 stents. You did.
It's a long time ago, Mike.
Yeah, that's the
By
point.
the way, ladies and gentlemen, every time this guy plays tennis, oh, my knee hurts, my back hurts, my neck hurts, my ass hurts. Be honest. Isn't that you? You're 50. You sound like you're 70. I said, so why are you
I'm
playing?
actually doing pretty good lately, and nothing's hurting right now. The only thing that's hurting is my ear for you yelling at me.
All right. Let's see. Well, that's about it. You have a great show. We look forward to it.
By the way, I wish you could talk about your little project that you're working on today, but you can't.
Little project I'm
You
working
called me about
on.
this morning. You're very excited about it.
I don't talk about my...
I know you don't, but I'm just telling people that you're working on something very exciting.
Why would you put that out like that?
Because I love to stick it to you.
Mm-hmm. By the way, what are you wearing? Not that we care, of course.
Hey,
by the way, when you do your show, I hope you wear pants, right? Because it would be sexual harassment if you didn't, right?
I don't wear a skirt when I do the show. I wear pants like a real
but
man.
Tell everybody what you look like when you go swimming.
I wear a T-shirt.
Look like one of these guys out of the 1914 movies with the weird
Look like Ronald
swimsuit.
Reagan when he was a lifeguard.
Yeah, pretty much. Without at least from the neck down.
Hey, be nice.
No, I'm just kidding.
Listen,
You know that.
When are you coming
All right,
back
listen,
on
my
TV?
friend.
Everybody should call Mark and write him on Twitter. that
Don't
Mark should
forget.
come
Hold
my
on now.
TV show.
Hannity tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, Fox News Channel. Brother, I love you.
All right, see you in 4 minutes.
There he is, my buddy. All right, folks, go watch Hannity. It's going to be great. America, I'm out of time. I salute you. Please come back tomorrow. We can do this again. Good night, America. I'm Mark Levin.